There was an article in the Guardian newspaper recently about how TV nature shows are good for our mental health. I already knew this. My friend Joanne and I have a weekly movie night at home, of course. We started with Planet Earth, season 2, followed by Blue Planet 2. Since then, we have sought out series with Sir David Attenborough, the naturalist, the 90-something naturalist and narrator, because of the beauty and awe at animal facts he generates for us in his work. We continued with the life of birds and are currently now watching Life in the Undergrowth, a fascinating look at bugs, spiders, worms, ants, etc. using microphotography. We've interspersed other bird documentaries as my friend is a fledgling birder, pun intended, but helped to move on to Perfect Planet, which came out in December on BBC. All of this is on Amazon Prime. I also read BBC News through a phone app, and I love their animal news. And they have a separate section just labeled animals. In the past 2 weeks, they've covered items like rescuing a cat stuck halfway down a chimney. They broke into a bedroom wall and took out a brick in the chimney to get the cat. A Chinese zoo passing off a dog as a wolf. The fact that dog attacks on pregnant sheep are at a surprising high this year. And the rescue of a tiny 2-week-old badger cub, which apparently was dragged away from its den. And lastly, the fact that the names of Scottish ospreys, the bird, were carried into space with the rover Perseverance. Lewis, Isla, Mally, and Ronach are now on Mars. Their names are now on Mars. I also read BBC, and there was also a recent article about school-age children wanting to know why the church did not preach about climate change. Personally, my friend Joanne and I have carefully and purposely avoided nature shows like David Attenborough's A Life on Our Planet, because unlike his other series, he talks about the degrading effects of climate change on animals and animal habitats. We do this because we are already acutely aware of the problem and highly sensitized to it. For me personally, more information about the loss and destruction of the planet and its creatures creates helplessness and fear and a terrible sense of panic and loss. Maybe you feel the same. But the news is around us every day, mostly depressing and some encouraging. In the same issue of the BBC News about children wanting to hear sermons on climate change, there was a review of Bill Gates' new book, How to Avoid a Climate Disaster. I decided I would preach about climate change and prepare by reading the book. It's very well written and easy to understand for humanities majors, such as myself. Bill Gates, the founder of Microsoft, is the 4th richest man in the world and a remarkable philanthropist. In the year 2000, he began the Gates Foundation in order to help the poorest people of the world with global health and development and to address education in the U.S. To date, the foundation has given away $36 billion. What has amazed me about Bill Gates is what an optimist he is. The Gates Foundation motto is, all lives have equal value. And the subheading, we are impatient optimists working to reduce inequity. As a side note, I highly recommend Inside Bill's Brain, Decoding Bill Gates, a documentary about him on Netflix. In about 2006, he had a light bulb moment about greenhouse gases and climate change. Bill Gates is a learning machine, and since then he has studied the issue from every angle. Not to scare you too much, but the problem basically is this. The Earth adds 51 billion tons of greenhouse gases to the atmosphere yearly. And we need to get to net zero emissions by 2050 if the world is not to become too hot for human habitation. Cars and jets and what Bill calls getting around are not the problem. They cause only 16% of the emissions. Electric cars are important, but they're only one part of the solution to the climate crisis. The major producers of emissions are these, and these are Bill's category names. Making things like concrete and steel, 31%. Generating electricity, 27%. Growing things, 19%. Getting around, 16%. Heating and cooling, 7%. The main solution Gates proposes for all of this is government policy with help from industry, philanthropy, and private investment, which especially focuses on innovation and not just restriction. Gates has poured his private fortune into a number of climate projects, including a no byproducts nuclear fission power plant. Byproducts are the big problem with nuclear plants, even though they're the cleanest form of energy. They leave radioactive waste. What is our response to climate catastrophe as spiritual people? It is hard to be hopeful when the problem is so dire. We can be aware and informed. We can do all we can personally and politically to be green and sustainable and to be centered, hopeful, and peaceful in the face of great danger. Being aware and informed. There are many stories in the news about climate crisis and its effects. We hear about storms, hurricanes, and flooding, but we don't have to read the news to know about wildfires, heat, and drought. We are living these. I would suggest looking for news that is encouraging. The election of a president who acknowledges the climate crisis was a tremendous relief. And here are two other upcoming bits. April 22nd is Earth Day and the 5th anniversary of the UN Paris Climate Accords. On that day, President Biden is convening a virtual Leaders Climate Summit for the heads of major economies. November 1st through 12th is the next meeting of the UN Conference on Climate Change. It will be held in Glasgow, Scotland, because of that city's commitment to sustainability and to being a global green city. I think of it this way. Most climate news comes in big packages of bad news. The Arctic is melting, and little envelopes of good news. There are many people and projects towards healing the climate, but they don't often make it into the news. These are the little envelopes. Doing all we can to personally and politically be green and live sustainably. The solution is not on us, as I've said. It's about our institutions. But there are things for us to do. We have already been doing a lot for many years now, as has our church, solar panels at St. James, and our cities and states. Of course, there's always more, but as Bill Gates calls it, there is often a green premium. For example, going for the solar energy option with PG&E is more expensive than regular energy prices. Buying an electric car is more expensive and can be inconvenient. They don't go very far on one charge. But there is always more. For example, I don't heat my apartment, but I rather pile on the layers to save energy. And I've pretty much cut out red meat. All those cows generate methane, a greenhouse gas. In the near future, politics will be important, and we will need to write letters, show up for town halls, demonstrations, and protests, and vote. Awareness will make it clear what we can do and be in the future beyond what we are doing already. Change is never easy, and it seems with this problem it will come quickly. Bill Gates' attitude is not that people, especially people in the developing world, should have less development or electricity, but rather that it be green. How to be centered, hopeful, and peaceful in the face of this great danger. I have no particular tips in this area. This requires an individual response, and we need to think about our own strategies. For me personally, overcoming fear about the future is my challenge, not being overcome with anxiety. I think about someone who, like Eric Liddell, who was featured in the film Chariots of Fire, who went on to be a missionary in China and imprisoned in a prisoner of war camp during World War II under tremendous privation and persecution. His faith and hope shone to all there, and his faith was a great anchor. Faith is a great anchor to us, and community can bring hope. This is Lent, a time to strengthen our faith, hope, and love. Faith can be defined as trust. One of the memorable one-liners from the AA program is, "Let go and let God." And there is also the expression, "turn it over." One suggestion I do have is hopeful input, which lifts our spirits. There is a 3-part series, which was on KQED, now on Amazon, called The Age of Nature, about places where natural habitats have been destroyed and then completely restored with and without the help of humans. A big takeaway is that nature, planet Earth, heals itself with vigor when left alone. But there also will be things that we will be called upon to do. There's a movie called The Biggest Little Farm about young farmers determined to make their farm green and sustainable. And also the book Wilding, The Return of Nature by Isabel Tree, about the wilding movement and the restoration of habitats at their ancient English farm. We have 30 years to make some drastic changes in our world and in our lifestyles. And may the God of hope give us all joy and peace in believing, so that we may abound in hope. Amen.